All the fear and adrenaline from the night had drained out of Kathy as she watched Adam walk his motorcycle to a corner of the Layers' garage. The conversation with Lawrence Rax, the realization that he was mayhem, the rush of the escape, it had all left her in a crackling buzz that the cool night air had frizzled out. She was numb now, simply unable to fear fear or excitement. Anything. Looking at all the strange cars and gadgets in Night Shadow's garage helped her redirect her thoughts. Almost. She could still feel the crushed glass on the bottom of her shoes, could still hear it crunch with every step she took. Rough night, huh? Adam finished with his cycle. He made sure no tracers had been attached before turning off the scrambler built into the vehicle. Kathy didn't answer. She didn't want to talk. Didn't want to acknowledge any of what she now knew. Hey. He walked over to her. You okay? She gave a small nod. Concerned, Adam placed a hand on her shoulder. You did a great job. You know that, right? The bugs worked. They talked a lot while you were unconscious. We heard everything. We know Mayhem's next move. Like the glass on her shoes, at the mention of the villain's name, something inside Kathy cracked. The anger returned. The fear, once subdued, roared back to life as images of her brother's killer flooded her memory. She shrugged off his hand. He stepped back, unsure what to do. The sudden movement of her shoulder was more than her exhausted body could handle, however, and Kathy soon found herself dizzily swaying. Adam took her shoulders once more and led her at a slow and steadying pace into the inner spaces of the lair. Wait here, he said, helping her get seated on one of the many chairs. I have some things to discuss with Night Shadow. Kathy tried to focus her eyes on him, but everything around her seemed to swim. That's the shock of all that adrenaline wearing off. Just rest for a little bit. I'll be back soon. Night Shadow will be eager to know what happened. He smiled widely. We're so much closer to finding Mayhem. Rex is Mayhem, Kathy said, weakly, hardly wanting to admit it out loud. Tell him that. What? Shock filled Adam's eyes. He wanted to know more. What could she mean? How could she be sure? He moved from the stairs, but the door at the top opened and Night Shadow beckoned him to come. With no choice, he climbed some stairs, opened a door, walked in, and closed it behind him, leaving Kathy with her thoughts. A while later, Adam stepped out of the upper chambers of the depths of the lair. Kathy assumed he had been talking over strategy with Night Shadow. He said he was giving her a chance to let the adrenaline crash wear off. She managed to stay awake regardless. She wanted to know what they were going to do next. Adam, mask off, suit still on, dropped his cape as he strode to the computer. So, what's next? She said as he passed. There is no next for you, Kathy. We're done here. He made no eye contact. What? She was stunned. I'm sorry, but you can't remain involved. It's too dangerous. I'm going to ask you a few questions about Mayhem, and then we part ways. For good. Still, he did not face her. He just turned on the computer and stared at the big screen. Look, Adam, I'm here to stay, Kathy said, standing up. I'm as much a part of this as you. I'm not stopping till the monster's taken down. I don't care how dangerous it is. Tonight showed us that. Tonight, nothing. So what if I got caught? I had things under control. I had him talking, didn't I? And you showed up because one of my bugs, remember? Adam stopped working on the computer and stared at the keyboard. He glanced back up at the screen after what seemed like a long time. You didn't just get caught. His voice was soft. He didn't want to let the words out.
What?
Confusion hit her like a train.
We let you get caught today. We had to find out where his base of operations was and to hear more from him directly. You what?
Her tone was a mix of anger and hurt.
How? I have many aliases. You sold me out?
Her anger subsided a little, giving way to more confusion.
But my bugs! We made sure they were on. We made sure you had them.
Kathy suddenly remembered Night Shadow patting her on the shoulder before they put the plan into effect, before her capture.
That's why the transceiver was turned off, so I wouldn't be able to hear you.
Adam turned the swiveling chair to face her.
I'm sorry. You're sorry? That's all there is?
Her anger flared fully to life.
You used me! We had no other choice. But now I have to ask you to leave. You can't be in...
It was difficult to keep his gaze on her. Each time his eyes met hers, he could see the pain caused by the sting of what she saw as betrayal.
And she was just starting to trust me,
he thought.
You...
Kathy fumed.
You're just like all the others.
Adam was a little taken back at this. Was she comparing him to those undependable fame-seekers she had mentioned upon their first encounter?
You used me, and now you want to discard me? You never believed in any of my abilities, did you? You simply hung out around me for the sole purpose of drawing me in. You let me recognize you. You let me in on your secret. You wanted me to get involved so you could use me to find Rex's headquarters. I had bugs. I was vulnerable. I made his gang angry. He knew my face. You knew the whole time.
The pieces fit perfectly in her mind.
You're just like all those other heroes out there.
The way she said heroes nearly broke his heart. He vowed one day to find out the reason for her mistrust, the source of all that bitterness. Though for the present, he was more concerned with not being placed in a category of such low esteem. He had to make his peace.
I promise you, it wasn't like that,
he said.
Hrax.
She turned on him so violently his combat reflexes nearly kicked in.
Yes, Hrax. I'd love to hear how you justify throwing me to the wolves.
She growled, eyes blazing.
Do you have any idea who he is?
That is enough bickering. The two of them immediately became silent as Night Shadow entered the room. It isn't exactly as you think, Kathleen. Following a long pause, he looked thoughtfully at her, with what appeared to be sorrow in his eyes, though it was hard to tell. Why don't you tell him? Losing the battle to control her anger, Kathy glared at Night Shadow.
You seem to know everything about my life. Why don't you tell him?
Because, the older man replied, it would be better coming from you. He reached out a hand to her shoulder, but she shrugged it away. Turning from both of them, Kathy took a few deep breaths.
Fine,
she said, not looking at either party.
You want to know why I don't like heroes? Fine, I'll tell you.
She paused to slow her heartbeat. Night Shadow waited expectantly. Adam stood by him in complete bewilderment. In a few moments, Kathy faced her listeners. She wasn't at all certain she wanted to tell them this story, but she knew she must if she and the Blue Shadow were ever going to be able to work as a team. She took a breath and began.
A long time ago, probably before you even thought of becoming the Blue Shadow,
she gestured towards Adam.
This city had a hero. He wasn't exactly needed. There wasn't that much crime, and, well, I'm not even sure he really did that much. He just appeared one day and saved an old woman's purse. After that, he started kind of taking on drug dealers and, a few gangs around the alleyways. The newspapers called him a spark of hope in a darkened city. You know how the media is. People started believing we were really living in a dark and scary place, full of crime lords and corruption. It was like this great place had turned into Gotham City overnight. But the truth was, we'd let it. The citizens, the cops, everything that went wrong was given over to the Spark to be fixed, and he basked in the glory. Eventually, petty thieves and small-time gangsters weren't enough for him. I'll never understand why anyone would want a nemesis, but I guess he craved a challenge, or danger, or both maybe.
She looked at the floor, not wanting to continue to tell the story of a memory she had for so long tried to forget.
Anyway, he wanted chaos, and it came. Burning through the city like General Sherman. If we had ever needed a superhero, that was the time. I remember I was on my way home one day when my brother John and I saw a small crowd gather outside a used car lot.
Tears were knocking at her eyes, but Kathy forced herself to continue.
We had no idea what to expect, and we had to go past it anyway, so we stopped to see what was going on. A man, Mayhem, they called him, stood in the center of the crowd. He was dressed in red from head to toe with a long cloak and a mask that covered most of his face. I'll never forget that grin. As long as I live, that look on his face, like all his plans were coming together, and there was absolutely nothing anyone could do about it.
She paused.
And as soon as we got close, we could sense how awful of a decision we'd made. It was almost like that man's evil was somehow radiating from him.
"Where's your hero?"
he was saying to the crowd.
"I thought he wanted to teach me a lesson in manners or something cliché like that."
Kathy held back a shudder, sick at how she remembered his words so clearly.
People murmured. They were frightened. I didn't know who this man was. I only knew he wasn't good. He just kept jeering, calling out for the Spark like he was being stood up or something. I still don't know what made me say it, but I called out from the crowd, "The Spark will come. He's our hero." I didn't understand or know that I needed to just stay quiet and go home. The look he gave me inspired nightmares for years. He walked over and the crowd fell back around John and me.
"You think he'll come?"
I remember him saying.
"You really think that tights-wearing blowhard will swoop in and save you?"
I didn't answer, so he looked to the crowd.
"She assures me that the Spark is just running a bit late and will be here quick as a wink when he knows someone's in trouble. Let's test that, shall we?"
He took a gun from somewhere in his cloak and brandished it for all to see.
"I am going to count to 10,
he announced.
"And when I'm done, I'll pull the trigger. If she's right, then no one gets hurt, and your little spark of hope really is a hero. If not..."
He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. He aimed the gun at my heart, counted down from 10, and bang. I didn't feel a thing. At first I thought the Spark had come and we were all saved, but then I opened my eyes. I saw John lying on the ground in front of me.
She no longer tried to hide the pain in her voice.
My brother took that bullet for me. He was a high school football player, and he was more of a hero than anyone I'd ever met. And much more real and brave and courageous than that so-called spark of hope could ever dream of being.
Kathy looked to her listeners, secretly begging them to just let her go and ask no more questions. But knowing full well that a story like that would not be easily put down, she waited. Adam spoke first, his voice a mix of sympathy for her and disgust at the villain she described.
How old were you when it happened? It was 14 years ago. I was 7. John was 18. What happened to the spark? He was never seen again. Wouldn't have wanted to show himself after that, I imagine.
And Rex?
Kathy nodded.
I didn't recognize him till we were face to face.
She wiped away a tear.
He had the same eyes.
They stared at each other for a long moment, not making eye contact.
There's a reason Adam was asked to ask you more about Mayhem, before he told you that you were not to be a part of this, Kathy. When he described his fighting style to me...
Night Shadow took a long breath.
There was something familiar about it.
Kathy.
Adam cut in.
Mayhem. Mr. Hrax. He's the spark.